Good day everyone. In the news article now is something that I announced in my last video that I will do, and it should shock every parent and anyone that's been affected by sexual assault in any kind of way, shape or form. And this is from our favorite area in Australia, Victoria. We've also seen, and I've covered this extensively, people arrested for what they call COVID-19 violations. Children being ripped away from their parents, or a mother that was pregnant arrested in a home, and many, many more. So it's the same idiots in government there that passed these laws, and hopefully you'll be as shocked as I was when I read about this. Now, they've been trying to overturn these laws in the meantime, so this isn't new news. This is from around August, and I've been watching this to see whether they would actually overturn these laws, because there were massive protests against it at the time. And in this article from the Daily Mail, it says, the headline reads, "Major victory for pedophiles as baffling law is passed." And a baffling law it is indeed. That could see rape and sexual assault victims thrown into jail just for telling their stories. Now imagine, you actually saying what happened to you to someone else, you can be put in jail for it and even fined. Especially if you mention the perpetrator's name. Now how on earth can anyone come up with a law like that? And that's why the headline says baffling. And the sub-headlines I'll read for you now. It says, Victorian sexual assault survivors could face prison time for telling their stories. Really, in the follow-up from the last video, this is where the world is going. And I want to warn people that this state of Victoria is a test bed for very specific ideology. And this ideology is to drive the New World Order agenda absolutely to the limit and see how the people respond. And see if they actually cave in the end, which is what most people end up doing. A law change in February prevents them from using their real names publicly. So you cannot use your real name. The law is retrospective and applies when an offender has been found guilty. So if someone is literally guilty of something, a sexual offense, you are not allowed to name that person or tell your story and use your name at all, because you can be imprisoned or fined. Breaches can result in up to 4 months in prison or fines exceeding 3,000 Australian dollars. A hashtag Let Us Speak campaign has been launched as victims fight for a law reform. Now those campaigns and some of those protests have already taken place. And just to think about the kind of person, the kind of human being that would come up with laws like this. And that does not bode well for the future, not only of the world, but of South Africa. Cyril Ramaphosa remains our president. And especially with Joe Biden pushing his agenda in the US, even although he hasn't officially been declared the President-elect of the United States of America, he's already running his future plans, balls to the wall, going full steam ahead. And let me tell you something, laws like this will become commonplace around the world. And a lot of people will say, but how is this possible? If you've been to my meetings, you'll understand why. Pedophiles is just a normal sexual preference to these people. This is one way of normalizing anything perverse. And if you come to my meetings, then you will understand why this has become the norm and why the odd ones out, the very loud minority, has actually been elected into office all over governments worldwide to actually implement laws like this. And once you get this right in one place, the floodgates will open. Luckily, the people in Victoria protested, and this is why they got stuck. And they still haven't changed these laws, people. It's still the way it is now. The laws that they are looking at changing will still keep people from speaking out after the assault victim has passed on. So say now my child has been a victim, they pass on for whatever reason, I would need a court order to speak out about it. This is literally where the world is going. Victorian sexual assault survivors could be jailed for up to 4 months or face fines exceeding 3,000 Australian dollars for telling their stories using their real names. You may not use your real name. The Judicial Proceedings Report Act was changed in February, prohibiting victims from identifying themselves publicly if their attacker has been found guilty. The new law applies retrospectively, meaning victims who have lawfully spoken out previously are now censored from speaking out publicly. Media outlets who defy the law can also be prosecuted and face fines of up to $8,000. So media outlets may not report on any of these people, or they would be fined. The only way for victims, I mean, this is complete and utter gagging. This is what it is. And the only reason why you would want to do this is because you're a pedophile yourself, or some kind of sick predator. The only way for victims to identify themselves and tell their stories is to obtain a court order. So you have to ask a court to speak out about something that's been perpetrated against you, which is not only time consuming but would cost more than $10,000 in legal fees. So what it does is it makes it almost impossible for someone to speak out, because a fine is actually less than the court order. So speak out and get a fine. The legislation comes as the result of the Victorian government making a series of changes to fix another problem with the law. Now, it's important to understand that the person in charge in Victoria, the politician in charge, is one sick, perverted person, a complete and utter New World Order stooge, and this is a test bed, people, for their New World Order ideology. Dr. Rachel Bergen, lecturer in the Swinburne Law School, described the change in the law as a major victory for convicted pedophiles and rapists. Well, absolutely. She said thousands of survivors will now find they cannot tell their story. Not only can victims no longer use their real names, they cannot provide any identifying features such as photos in publications such as memoirs and autobiographies unless they get a court order. Can you imagine this? The absolute ridiculousness of these laws. These laws have been enacted, by the way. So they weren't proposals, they are in force right now. There is no way that I would just have $10,000 sitting around to pay to do this. I'd be taking my money away from my family. Maggie, an adult survivor of child rape, told sexual assault survivors are now... she told news.com. Sexual assault survivors are now fighting for their right to share their stories with a hashtag Let Us Speak campaign launched on Wednesday. So this was some time ago. The campaign, which is a collaboration between rape and sexual assault research and advocacy, Rasara, Marquee Lawyers End Rape on Campus Australia, and news.com.au, is calling on the government to reform the law. So they want government to change the law immediately. And I've seen the amendment, and it's still a huge problem. These people obviously do not want these perpetrators to be known, or the person perpetrated against. Melbourne mother Maggie, 44, was raped from age 8 by her father, who also sexually abused her oldest stepsister Kate. Now remember, you can't speak out even later. Not only if it hasn't happened, if it's happened now, you can't speak out if it happened in the past. When Maggie was 17, he was arrested and charged with rape and gross indecency, as well as multiple court counts of bestiality, after Kate reported her abuse to police. In May 1997, 4 days before the trial was set to begin, he shot Kate dead at work after tracking her down using a private investigator. He was sent to prison the following year after pleading guilty to murder in exchange for the sexual offences being dropped. With his parole eligibility date looming, Maggie decided to come forward, resulting in her father receiving a 9-year jail sentence for multiple counts of incest and rape against her. However, in March this year, the Supreme Court of Appeal slashed his sentence for the crimes against Maggie and ruled he could serve them concurrently with his murder sentence, leaving him eligible for parole in June 2022. I'm now a mother of 3 beautiful children, and I wouldn't want him out in any community. I'm not just scared for my children, I'm scared for all children. I also have to be the voice for my sister too. She never got justice for the sexual abuse she experienced either, Maggie said. Now just think of these circumstances. Maggie contacted Australian media outlets to draw attention to the lenient sentences given to pedophiles, only to learn of the new law that makes it a crime for the media to publish her name or her father's, as it could indirectly identify her. My sister was murdered for trying to tell a story, and now I'm stopped from telling mine. He has all the power again. It has to change, Maggie said. Victorian Attorney General Jill Hennessy has written to Maggie and other members of the #LetUsSpeak campaign to say she is very sorry to hear of their experiences. That doesn't help the problem at all. For a politician to say, I'm so sorry what happened to you, but you can't talk about it. She has requested the Department of Justice and Community Safety look into the cases. A GoFundMe page has been set up to cover the court costs of survivors battling to overturn the gag law. Similar gag laws were overturned in the Northern Territory and Tasmania earlier this year as a result of #LetUsSpeak campaign. So it's not just in Victoria where this is happening. However, they differ to the Victorian legislation as they were outdated pre-existing policies. All the names in this article were changed so that the people cannot be identified for obvious reasons, otherwise the Daily Mail might get a massive fine. As you can see, with these kind of laws being passed in society, where's the justice? There's a specific agenda behind it. The people that came to my meetings would understand what their agenda is. It is very, very simple. We will lose all family rights. We will lose all family values. We will lose being male and female. We will lose age. We will lose anything that we hold dear. And if you come to my meetings, I will give you more detail as to how this plan was hatched and how the legislation is being passed not only in Australia but around the world to bring us closer and closer and closer to this perverted society where no families will exist, where no mother and father will exist. You won't have your own children that you have custodianship over. The government will own your children. In fact, in future, the one world government will, when other governments cease to exist. And this is why we have turmoil around the world. All governments needs to come to a fall. And because they don't exist in terms of being a government where you actually govern the people, it's just puppets taking money or being blackmailed to do what the world powers want them to do. And it's a really sad state of affairs. And this law will hopefully make you realize how quickly your rights to just speak out on the fact that you were abused will be taken away from you in this new world order. For those of you who haven't subscribed to this channel, please subscribe and click the bell icon for notifications. Go and watch the Question Everything series and Moments in Time series if you are new to this channel, so that you can understand where I'm coming from. Once you've been through those videos, it'll be great if you could actually come to one of my meetings where you'll get a lot more detail on what is happening in the world, and then many of the things that I say should make a lot more sense. And just to end off, most of my videos I've been making with the people that have attended my meetings in mind. So if you're new to the channel, many things won't make sense. Go and watch the Question Everything series and the Moments in Time series, especially the first 4 videos. Thank you very much. Till the next video.